Hello and welcome to episode 138 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is April 11th, 2022. Today I'm wearing a very special shawl because I knit this shawl for my wedding. And the construction is a bit different than most triangular shawls that I have knit so far. Most of the ones I've knit start at the neck and work downwards, but this one you start at the middle tip and you start off with one of those motifs, and then you have two, and then you have three, and then with every repeat you have one more of those motifs. I think the pattern is called Candle Flame Shawl, and I think it was a free pattern. The yarn, I think, was by Lana Grossa, but I'm not too sure. I'll link the page, the project page, so if you're interested, you can check. But it's a while ago, so I'm not quite sure that, if the yarn is still available. So I started knitting the shawl, and I had already done quite a bit when I had the idea that I might add beads. And usually when I put beads in my knitting, I like to knit them into the project. So either I put the bead on the stitch itself either with a crochet hook or with some dental floss, or with some patterns you pre-string the beads onto the yarn, but basically I prefer to knit them into the project straight away. But because I'd already started, it was too late to do that. And then also because of the kind of little pearls that I chose to use, the holes that they were too small. They wouldn't have fit onto the yarn anyway. So I used sewing thread and I sewed the pearls on after the fact. So after I finished knitting the shawl, I put, I think, 200 plus little pearls onto the shawl. And I think I was sewing them on either until the very morning, or maybe the night before. But it took a long time and I didn't have a lot of time left. But I managed to put a little pearl onto each and every one of those little motifs. And I really like it. It's not really a white shawl. It's more like an off-white color, which is a color I don't usually wear a lot. It really fit to the dresses that I was wearing at my wedding, so that's why I chose it. But ever since, I haven't really worn it a lot. But I thought with the white in the pullover, those two would look good together. And I thought it was time to get it out and, use it again. So my wedding shawl. I like it a lot. It was a beautiful day. Lots of happy memories. And of course, I'm wearing my new Raglano. So I showed you the finished project last week. I have washed it. I did not block it. I took a picture when it was lying there. It looked really weird. I hope I put it on Ravelry. If I haven't, I will do that so you can have a look at the weird shape it made when it was lying there. But I'm really, really happy with how the pullover turned out. I'm happy with not having blocked it width-wise, so it does sort of cling to my body a little bit, but because I use quite a lot of stitches, I wanted it rather loose. I'm really happy, and that I also knit it quite loosely. I knit it's a 6-ply sock yarn or DK weight, not quite sure what the proper word is. I knit it with a 4.5mm needle, so it's fairly loose. I'm really happy with that. I'm very happy with the fit. The sleeves are unusually long for me. I'm usually too impatient and I finish them before they are long enough. So to have sleeves that are almost too long is quite interesting, and I like it. It keeps me nice and warm. And if I need them out of the way, I can just roll them because this is all ribbing. The length, as I said, is like a medium length. It's not a cropped, so my what do you call this? Waist. My waist is around here, so it's longer than that, but it's not really too long, and I'm happy with that length as well. I think it works nicely both with a skirt or with trousers, so that's really good. And I've been wearing it a few times already since I washed it, and I can see me wearing that a lot in the future. And I've already been thinking of knitting the next one like it. I'm pretty sure I won't knit exactly the same one again. I just love to change things up and experiment. But I can see more pullovers in that kind in my future. Yeah, so much to what I'm wearing. Then on to finished objects. I have 3 finished objects, and I'll start with the oldest one, and that's my Wolkig. That's the knit along that we were doing on this channel and in the Ravelry group. I used pure Angora yarn by Seidenhase. That's a German company, or rather a family, who own their own rabbits, and they spin and dye their own yarn, and it's extremely soft, and I love the colors. They're rather dark, but they sort of go with everything I have. And the first time I bought a skein of their yarn, it was bright pink. It was almost a neon pink. And so for the second thing I bought, the second skein was this darker one. And then I bought another pink one, but not quite as bright. And I knit a hat out of that. And now I finally finished knitting this. And yeah, the Wolkig is a free pattern by Martina Behm. It's on knitty.com. It's a very simple pattern. You just keep repeating the same thing over and over again, but the effect is fantastic. You get these ruffles, and you have the difference between the stockinette and the reverse stockinette. And I can wear it around my neck like this, but I can also pull it lengthwise and put it around my neck. I haven't washed it yet. I will wash it this week. I am still debating whether or not to throw it in the dryer for a bit, because they say you can do it and it fluff up the yarn even more. So it's already quite a bit fluffy, but most Angora yarns that I know are a lot fluffier than this. And they say if you put it in the dryer, it'll fluff up more. Not quite sure whether I want it, because if I'm wearing it underneath my face, I'm not sure if the fluff is going to get into my nose or something. And it's already really beautiful the way it is, but maybe I'll do it, because I didn't do it with the other one because it had a lace pattern that I was worried wouldn't show as nicely if the yarn fluffs up too much. But with this one, the effect will still be visible even if it fluffs up. So I might do it. I'm a bit scared, to be honest, but whatever. I will wash it this week. I will somehow let it dry, and then I'm going to wear it next week, and then you can see all the different ways I can wear this. So that's the Wolkig out of Angora yarn, finally done. It doesn't mean the knit along is officially over now, but I always leave the groups, the discussion groups on Ravelry in the group, and there I leave them open, so you can always add whatever you knit to the discussion groups, and we can read it, we can look at the pictures, and that's the way I like to do it. So that's Wolkig, finally done. And then the next finished object is my Go Big or Go Gnome hat, number 3. So this is the 3rd time I've knit the pattern. It's the first time I used sock yarn, and this is basically a huge big swatch for the pullover I plan to knit in exactly these colors out of exactly this yarn, and I'm really happy with it. I like the look of it even when it wasn't washed yet and it was still on the needles, but the difference in how the knitting looks after it's been washed is just phenomenal. So I put the pictures up on Ravelry of the hat before it was washed and afterwards, and I think you should take a look at that. And I didn't block it. I didn't like pull it or put it over a balloon or something. I just straightened the knitting a little bit and then put it on the floor. And I made sure that the ribbing wasn't stretched while it was wet. So I made sure it kind of lay like this. And then this was just folding over like this. And then after some time, after a couple of hours, I moved it around a bit so it wasn't folded at the same spot. And now I'm really, really happy. So the pattern is of course by Sarah Shearer from Imagine Landscapes, and it's the first time I actually knit the adult gnomes. So because the other two hats I knit, I used bigger yarn, I had fewer stitches and I needed fewer rows, so I knit the gnomes that she designed for the baby and children's hats, and these are the gnomes for the grown-up hats. Yeah, now I have to do some measuring and calculating, and then I'm going to cast on the gnome pullover. All for the year of gnomes. Okay, and the third finished object is another pair of baby booties. So I had knit, and with this pair I decided that the project is finished. I had planned to knit 3 pairs, that's what I did. I already gave one of the pairs away, so I can only show you those 2 pairs. So this is the pattern that was in the book that I showed you before, and with the second pair I already changed up a few things, and with this one I also changed up the cable pattern that's in the little cuff, and I also incorporated the same changes that I did for the sole in the other pair, and I'm really happy. This is Opal Schafpate 6-ply. They've only done the Schafpate yarn, which is a German yarn, a completely German yarn. They usually do it in 4-ply every year, and I think it was 2 years ago that they had like a special offer where they had the Schafpate yarn in 6-ply in 6 different colors, and I think it's a beautiful yarn. I knit several things out of that, and yeah, I hope they will do that again. But this is the last pair of baby booties, and yeah, it's finished. That's all the finished project from last week. Now on to works in progress, and as there was nothing new happening in the sock madness in the last week, I was able to knit on all the current works in progress that I have been showing you. There are a few lingering whips that are lying around in some places that I need to get out at some point, but at least the current ones have been worked on. So as usual, I start with the socks, and the oldest pair of socks that I have on the needles are my 24-day socks. It's a pattern by Potter and Bloom podcast, Emma Potter, and she gifted me the pattern. She wanted to see what it looks like in opal yarn, and also she wanted to say thank you for my videos. I thought that was very kind of her, and I finished the pattern in the second sock. And as you can see, I did not get to the yellow stripe, so there's no yellow in this sock. There's lots and lots of yellow in the first sock. So they did end up quite a bit different, but that's fine with me. It's still very obvious that they belong together, and yeah, I'll tell you all about the difference yarn that I use next week, because I'm pretty sure it'll be finished, it'll be done next week. But there's one thing that I wanted to show you today, because I hadn't noticed. So I've shown you this sock, which is the first one in the pattern, I think several times while I was knitting it. And the other day, one customer was looking at the pattern, and I explained where to get it and who designed it. And then she kept looking at this bit of the pattern. And I was like, oh, that does look a bit different. And the thing is, there are like pearl ridges in the black yarn, and I forgot to do them on the foot, on most of the foot. So I forgot for the first time here, then I remembered for 2 stripes, and then I just completely forgot about them. So there's supposed to be a difference in the stripe on the sole, where everything is in stockinette, and then the upper part of the foot, there's supposed to be a difference between the stockinette and the like garter ridge in the main color. And I did it with this sock, and I just didn't do it with this one. It's so weird, and I didn't even notice. So I make mistakes all the time, but usually I notice them, and mostly I fix them. But that I don't even notice a big mistake like that is quite weird. But so you can see the difference in pattern here and here. I think the garter stitch is a really good idea. I think I do prefer the look in this part of the sock than in this part. But on the other hand, it doesn't matter. It's still a beautiful sock and it will be a nice and warm sock. And this one will be the correct one. Yeah, so that's quite interesting. And then, as I said, next week I will probably tell you more about the yarns and colours and everything. So that's the first pair of socks. Then the second pair of socks are the cat socks that I am knitting for my nephew. I finished knitting the first one. So this is what it looks like now. I will embroider little ears and a little cat face. This side you can see the little markers that I put in. I put them in every 20 rounds. Didn't put it here because the color change is quite obvious. Put one here. I had my nephew try it on, and the length was okay when he tried it on, but it was almost too tight, too snug. So I promise from the next socks, from the next pair on, I will use 4 more stitches for his socks. And yeah, I started the second one and I almost finished knitting the cuff. So this is 20 rows, this is 40 rows, so I am on 40 something or maybe even 50 something, and I knit 60 on the other, then I'll knit the heel, and so on and so forth. Cat sock number 2. Then the next pair of socks that you know that I knit on are the vanilla socks, 6-ply or DK weight, that are without a heel so far. They will get afterthought heels. And this is what I knit on the second one. It's actually a bit longer than the first one. I was rather distracted yesterday when I knit on it, and when I finally decided to count the rows, I realized I have about 3 rounds more on the second one than the first one. But I decided it's not worth undoing. It doesn't really matter. They have a rolled edge up here. So if I just roll this a little more than this one, it'll be completely invisible. And even if you could see that this is a tiny bit longer, it doesn't matter. They are for myself. So I don't mind having socks that are slightly different length in the cuff. I still love the fact that the colors, I planned it that way, that the colors are like completely opposite. And yeah, so I need to knit another toe. I need to knit a toe here and a toe here. So quite a few toes coming my way this week. And then not sure I'll find the time to cut into the socks to do the afterthought heels, but at some point I will. And I just realized I wanted to put the a different color toe on this one maybe, so mustn't forget that. Yeah. And then I have another pair of socks on the needles, even though it's sock madness, and I will most probably start another sock this week. But after I finish the Plaid Pocket socks that were the pattern for the Sock Madness round 2 last week, I was on a roll, or I was into the pattern. I knew how it worked, and as I told you last week, this is the color combination that I first planned to use for the socks, and then for competition purposes, I changed to 3 solid colors. But I so much like this color combination that I started another sock with this color, and I'm using fewer stitches. This is size small because that's big enough for my feet, and I'm just knitting another pair of Plaid Pocket socks. So this is what the pattern itself looks like. So there's quite a bit of just the light blue here, and I think that would have been fine for the competition. But then here the other colors come in, and I think that's what the designer wasn't too keen on, to have the different colors sort of make the plate pattern a bit less obvious. I think it's for the competition it was fine for me to be using the other colors, but for myself I still like the pattern even with these many colors. And I also put in a pocket, so I'm still knitting on the pocket, as you can see. And I think I made a mistake. Oh no, I didn't. It's just the yarn that clunked together. I did make a mistake. I'll show you in a minute. But the pocket itself is in working order. So there's no yarns that I sort of mixed up. This is the inside of the pocket, or the inside of the sock. And then the inside of the pocket, as you can see, this is my colorful yarn. And then this is the blue and white of the inside of the pocket. And here you can see some purl stitches. So because I knit a rib on the pocket for 6 rounds, I was always tempted to also purl the stitches of the inside of the pocket. And most of the times I caught myself and I fixed it. And with the competition sock, I was really, really careful. But this is in competition and I was obviously less careful. And I only noticed those stitches when I was already several rounds above. And yes, I could have dropped the stitches. I could have fixed it. If it was competition, I would have done it. But this is just my sock and I don't mind. I think it looks rather funny. Most of the time it won't be visible anyway because the pocket is on top of it. And yeah, so I'm not a perfectionist. I've never been one. I probably won't ever be one. So I have purl stitches on the inside of my pocket and that's fine. And that reminds me that last week I got a nice comment telling me that I was talking about my pocket in the sock as if it was absolutely normal to have pockets on your socks. And yeah, being told like that, I thought that was actually really funny. I hadn't even noticed. But after I had knit 2 socks with a pocket, it sort of got to be normal. And now I have 3 socks with a pocket and it's even more normal. But yes, I agree. It's not the usual thing to happen. But I like it. So this is the first new cast on for last week. And I won't be in a hurry to finish these socks. I will just knit on them whenever I feel like it. This week I will probably concentrate on all the toes I have to knit and then probably the next round of sock madness. But I enjoy the colors a lot. I will try to keep knitting the pattern as long as the pattern is still fresh in my memory, so they shouldn't take too long, hopefully. Yeah, that's all the socks actually that I'm knitting at the moment. And then on to small projects out of sock yarn that are not socks. And that's my second new cast on. And I am knitting a cowl or loop shawl that I want to wear with this pullover. I think last week I already told you that as this is the 6-ply Opal Regenwald yarn, rainforest yarn, and this is the same color Opal rainforest, but this is the 4-ply. So this is the fingering weight or sock weight yarn in the same color. And at first I had planned to just knit a cowl in a 2x2 rib, just like a turtleneck, and then I could wear it with the pullover. It would look as if it was one, and then I can take it off, or I could wear the cowl with something else. But then, as I said, I got this book. It's called Rechte Masche, Linke Masche by Bernd Kessler. Translates to knit stitch and pearl stitch. And it's the first book by Bernd Kessler that's first published in Germany. I don't know if it's going to be published in Japan. I don't know if it's going to be published in English at some point. I don't know. But his idea with this book, with all the projects in the book, was to come up with projects that only use knit stitches and purl stitches and no increases or decreases or cables or lace patterns. So to keep it really simple and still get an interesting effect. And I think this looks really interesting already. So this is one of the things that I would love to make at some point. Then there's one project with those fringe thingies. This is a fairly simple scarf out of, I think this is all knit stitches, but the direction of knitting changes. And then this is what I've started knitting. Yeah, by the way, I was gifted the book, not by the publisher, but by a good friend of mine who bought it for me. And yeah, so this is another funny project. And they, as I said, they're all really simple to do. And the project that I chose is this one. So it's a cowl with these points at the lower edge, but then it has the 2x2 rib. So I thought it's similar to my pullover, but still there's a little something that's different. And then there's another loop in the book that has those points at both ends of the loop. And I really like that. But for this one, he chose to only use 3 points on the bottom and 3 on the top. And then you fold it down and you get like 6 of those points. So basically it's the same number of points with this one. But of course I had to change things up a little bit. So I started off with those 6 points. But my plan is to then switch to the other pattern and do another 6 points that are offset at the other end of the loop, and then when I fold it down, I'll have 12 of those points. Can never have enough of a good thing. So, well, I guess you can, but anyway. So this is how much I've knit so far. Not a whole lot, but enough to be able to tell that there are these points. I am almost at the point where I'm just knitting a 2x2 rib, and then I have to decide for how long I want to knit it, and then I will go back and knit this pattern in reverse order. It's, as I said, not complicated at all. There are no increases or decreases, even though it kind of looks like the stitches were decreasing. When I started knitting, I was a bit worried it was going to be too big. Then I thought it might be too small, but I'm pretty sure that it's a good size. And yeah, really looking forward to finishing that and then wearing it with this pullover. So that was the second new cast on. Now I can show you the other things, or all the other projects I'm going to show you now you already know. So the first one is the Rainbow Cardi by Stephanie Loven, I think. Anyway, so it doesn't look a lot like a rainbow. I know this is my black cardigan that I'm knitting that will get neon bright rainbowy colors in the collar. Once I finished the cardigan, I've put the stitches of the first sleeve on waste yarn, so I might add some color there later. And I did get to knit on the second sleeve, so I am almost at the point where I started the decreases on this sleeve. And once I reach that point and I can do decreases, should be fairly quick to get down to the same length as this one. And once that's done, I can go back to knitting the front and back, which is going to be really boring. But that's the last step that I need to do before I can start this beautiful, colourful collar. So I should be quite motivated to get this done. So that is that. Then I did a tiny little bit of crochet on the like little cover or doily that I'm crocheting for my stove in the little kitchen I have here at my shop. Just to remind you, this is what the pieces are supposed to look like in the end. And I started all the 7 pieces that I still need at the same time. And then the last time I showed it to you, I had put the second color onto some of the pieces, but not all of them. And now every piece has its second color. So this is always one round. And then the next round will be the middle color. So for this one, it's the next darker color. And for this one, it's the next lighter color. And that happens to be the same color for all the pieces. So I can use that color and then do the next round on all the pieces in the same color and then keep working on it. So yep, I'm not forgetting about it. It's slow going, but I am looking forward to the finished project. So that should keep me going. The other crochet project I'm working on, I must say, gets a lot more love at the moment. And that's the dinosaur blanket stomp that I'm crocheting for one of my cousin's kids. And I still love the interlocking crochet technique. I learned it specifically so I could crochet this pattern. I calculated I needed to crochet about 10 rows every week to get it done. so that the little recipient can get the blanket when he starts school. And this is what it looks like today. So I'm really, really happy still with how the colors come out in the background. I'm still very happy with the blue dinosaur I'm crocheting. As you can see, the leg, the first leg, is now completely finished. So those two lines came together. This is now the dinosaur's belly, and the leg and foot are completely done. The belly, he has stripes on his belly, and I think the first stripe is going to be done soon. This is the second stripe, and then there are several more stripes. This is the second foot, and now I know that this bit is the leg, and this is the underside of the foot, and he has this sort of blue marking on his foot, and then there will be a few toes, sort of like these toes, but just not from the side, but from below. Yeah, so as I said, still enjoy the crocheting. Have to count all the time, so you crochet. I crochet the right amount of stitches either on the back or the front of the blanket. Here there's a bit that's fairly open at the moment, so as you can see, I basically crochet 2 blankets, but wherever the colors cross over, the blankets get connected. And yeah, I'm still working on the first 2 balls of yarn, but they are diminishing quite a bit. So the next goal, so to say, is to finish those 2 balls of yarn, and then I can kind of calculate how much yarn I'm actually going to need, and then I'll see. I think I put away 2 more of each color. Once those are gone, I should be able to tell whether that's going to be enough. Yeah, and then we're at the knit along. Now only 1 knit along, as the Wolkig is finally done, and I continued knitting on the star cushion that we are making together. I'm using this grey glittery yarn by Kiko, and I finished the first middle piece. It was almost done last week, so I just had to finish that last round. The needle is a bit too small to show the whole size of that piece, and I started the second middle piece. So they look fairly similar. The stripes do come out a little different, so the middle here is black and the middle in the second piece is grey. Yeah, but I think it should be a nice one. Once that's done, I can put them together like this, and then I can start knitting the points. Yeah, so that's everything I knit and crocheted last week. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!